So the story of the 127 meter dive it was in 2020 during COVID times. I was locked down on the island, and kind of given free rein to just concentrate on my training with no end goal, no competition coming up, which is the best kind of scenario for improving performance. And the world record at the time was 125 meters in free immersion. Now, this is a discipline where you pull yourself on the rope, so you can go deeper because you have this rigid point of contact. So I had to go to 126, but in training, I was trying to like extend past that in order to get like a buffer. And I'd done 126 meters a few days prior, and it had been one of the most beautiful, clean, easy dives of my career. Like, it was really an amazing experience, and there was definitely a good margin on that dive. Could have gone deeper. So I took a few days off, as I always do, to recover, and then set the rope 1 meter deeper to 127. So worst case scenario here, if it was a bad day and I screwed things up, then maybe I would come to the surface and black out just below the surface. But on this dive, something happened. Well, I blacked out at 43 meters from the surface. It could not have been oxygen, because there's no way that my oxygen could have run out at that point in the dive when I'm still only 2/3 of the way back to the surface. So we suspect that it was an anomaly caused by the high partial pressure of another gas like carbon dioxide. We still don't really know. But on that day, I had two people, one safety diver and someone else on the surface, but of course no one at depth. And the safety system we use is that we are hooked onto the rope with a running carabiner, so you're kind of clipped on. If anything happens below the depth of the safety diver, then they can release the counterballast, which is this heavy weight on the other side of the platform, and that pulls the whole rope that you're diving on up. The plate at the bottom catches you and pulls you to the surface. It's just a kind of a last ditch thing, and you really don't want to be like thinking about that scenario, because it means you'd be under the water for a very long time. And recovery from that, resuscitation isn't guaranteed, basically. So yeah, I blacked out at 42 meters. My safety diver by that time was already coming down to meet me. So he's on his way to 30 meters, gets to 30 meters, doesn't see me, because by this point I've already drifted down to probably 50 something meters, so I'm out of sight. He knows that I'm always on time with my dives, so he's timed his dive to meet me at that depth. I'm not there. He comes back to the surface as quickly as he can, releases the counterballast, and starts helping to pull the rope up. But it's not until I've fallen back down to 76 meters, 250 feet, that the plate catches up with me and starts to pull me to the surface. And then from there, it's another like minute and a half to get me to the surface. So by that point, I'd been under the water for 6.5, close to 7 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
And yeah, if someone had described the incident up to this point, they'd say, this is what happened. What do you think happened next? I'd be like, they're dead. There's no way you can die.
I'd be like, he's dead for sure. He's in heaven.
Yeah, come 100%. Up to 42, go back down to 76, unconscious. Yeah, there's no way. But I think because I wasn't low in oxygen when I blacked out, then what little oxygen I had left in the body was preserved, because I was just completely blacked out, not moving. And so I was able to stay longer, would survive longer under the water. So when they brought me to the surface, it was fairly soon after, within a minute, I think even 30 seconds, that I actually came to and started to very weakly breathe by myself. They administered oxygen. It took a lot longer for me to kind of fully come to, and by that point, the new problem was that I was experiencing extreme DCS, decompression sickness, from being at depth too long, and so having absorbed too much nitrogen. And I couldn't use my body almost at all. I felt like I was kind of if I hadn't done anything, I would have ended up in a wheelchair at that point from paralysis. And so I had to get back under the water as quickly as possible, breathing pure oxygen.
How
It
long after you blacked out did
was
you have
that
to go back in?
15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes at the most.
Jeez. So you recovered, you're conscious, and then you have to go right back in and breathe at depth.
Yeah. So breathing from a scuba regulator, but breathing 100% pure oxygen. And I took that down just to a shallow depth to get the effects of the pressure. And then when I did that, these symptoms of the decompression sickness reversed. And so I started to feel my body again. I could use my hands and feet.
Holy
And
shit. And that just combats the nitrogen buildup, the pure oxygen.
So it washes that out.
And you need the compression and the oxygen at the same time. You can't just breathe pure oxygen on the surface for it to go away.
What's happened is that these little bubbles have formed, bubbles of nitrogen in your blood. So if you open a can of Coke too fast, then the bubbles form in the can and then come to the surface, right? It's the exact same thing in a free dive or a scuba dive. If you had a lot of pressure of a lot of absorbed gas under pressure, and then you come back up to normal pressure, surface pressure, too quickly, then it forms bubbles, and those bubbles travel through your circulation and get lodged in the really, really tiny capillaries, which tend to be in your head. And so now it's blocked that capillary. Anything downstream of that in the brain starts to die because it's not getting blood. So you get basically like little, what's the word?
Like mini strokes or something like that. Yeah.
And so that was happening. An embolism basically is the word for it. And when you go back underwater with the pressure, that compresses these little bubbles, and so now they fit through the tiny capillaries, and they pass through and get reabsorbed into the blood and then off-gassed as you're breathing. So that saved me from being in a wheelchair for the rest of life. My safety diver first saved me from drowning, and then that protocol afterwards saved me from kind of being an invalid for the rest of my life. I also had burst eardrums from obviously falling back down 30 meters. So those were kind of hurting a little bit, but it's amazing how quickly the body recovers. Like you bounce back from this kind of thing. The eardrums heal, the lungs heal, and I was diving again within a few weeks.
That's insane. Like you also have the diagram in the article where you can see how close your safety diver got before you started to go sink back down the other way. So that I guess that's like you said, the most high risk part of the dive is if you black out before you get to the safety diver, then your only chance is getting pulled up by that lever, by the carabiner.
Yeah, and it's really a last ditch. I mean, it's more for scenarios where like something goes, like you get your carabiner gets stuck at the bottom, or you lose the rope, or those kind of because we never even expected that you could black out that deep, especially when I'm essentially doing the same dive as a few days ago that was super clean and easy, and I got back to the surface. So why did I black out kind of 2/3 of the way up? But we're actually still doing kind of scientific research in order to find out what might have been the cause of that. There was I can see from the graph of my dive that there was no change in my technique leading up to that, so there's no warning signs. I've done like hypnotism in order to try and recall, because I can't remember anything before that happened off the dive. So I've tried to be hypnotized to remember anything that might have happened before the blackout, but that didn't reveal anything.
Do you remember any parts of the dive, or?
I remember everything on the way down. After the turn, I can't remember anything. So I was obviously swimming coming up, in a normal fashion because my speed and strokes matched perfectly the previous dive from the dive computer profile. But I can't remember any of that, and I can't remember just before the moment that I blacked out.